What's up, YouTube? I haven't made a video since Canelo Alvarez's beatdown of James Kirkland. Might have been 2 weeks ago now, I think. I had a personal tragedy occur. It's something that we saw coming, but it still was tragic nonetheless. I'm not going to go into specifics because a lot of fucked up trolls here on YouTube. But didn't really feel like making videos for a while. But life must go on. And one thing I want to talk about, because I'm just in an irritable, irascible mood, is the annoyance of so much of these ESPN and sports shows and how they just totally focus on individual athletes and players as opposed to the team. Now, I can understand in the sport of boxing you focusing on the individual athlete. There's just a boxer out there, all right? But there's entirely too much focus on individual players. And I'm especially noticing that in the NBA right now. You know, I'm seeing a lot of, stats thrown out there and numbers and weird statistics and milestones and, just last night I saw something where they were saying that LeBron James had now equaled, I think, or surpassed, I can't remember. He either equaled or surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar for most 30-point games in playoff history. And I think that means he's second behind Michael or something like that. And that he also surpassed Jason Kidd for second all-time in playoff triple-doubles. And I'm assuming that he's behind only a guy by the name of Magic. And these numbers are, when you hear these stats, you're like, wow, this guy's amazing. Wow. I mean, he's past the great Jason Kidd. He's phenomenal. But what these things don't really put into perspective is this. Aside from a little 3 to 4 year span in the early to mid 2000s, when Jason Kidd was in his prime and he made it to the finals or the Eastern Conference Finals most of the time, Jason Kidd in his prime really didn't have a lot of playoff trips. Not a lot of them, all right? And when he finally were on teams that go to deep in the postseason, like for instance when he was the Mavericks and they won the NBA championship, he was a shell of himself and not a productive player in the sense that he was early in his career. So, if you take into account that I'm pretty sure Jason Kidd probably played in maybe, I'm just gonna guess, he may have played like 150 playoff games. I'm just gonna take a guess. I don't know the exact number, but I'm pretty sure he played in far less playoff games than LeBron James. Look at the amount of games played before you really start, accepting all this shit as the gospel. Now, don't get me wrong, LeBron James is a tremendous player. But I just hate hyperbole. I hate a lot of hype. I hate it. I don't care who the fucking guy is. I hate fucking hype. And I've proven to people that it's not that I'm biased. I just hate hype. I did it with Kobe for many years. People claim I hated Kobe Bryant. I kind of dislike certain things in Kobe's personality, but I still admire the player. And now you don't even hear me talk about Kobe anymore. Why? Because the hype is gone. Because he's a shell of himself. And the cocksuckers have found other players to suck. You know what I'm saying? So they're sucking LeBron right now. And while they're looking at LeBron's numbers to see he might be declining, they're over there eyeing Steph Curry now, And they're looking for Curry's cock to suck next, which is some people already doing. And, like I said, I'm not taking away from these players' greatness. I think LeBron James is probably a top 10 all-time player. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, this is a guy who, since 2007, has pretty much consistently gone to either the Eastern Conference Finals or the Finals. That's a long period of time to go deep in the postseason every year. So you're accumulating a lot of playoff games. A lot. I don't know his total so far, but he has to be around 200 playoff games in his career. I know Michael Jordan had 179 postseason games, and I think LeBron has surpassed Michael in that total. I'm pretty sure he has. Focus on Stephen Curry for a little bit. All right, Stephen Curry is a tremendous shooter. I've said it before. I think Stephen Curry will go down as the greatest three-point shooter of all time. I'm not going to say he's the greatest shooter of all time, but he's the greatest three-point shooter I've ever seen in my life. One of the reasons why I won't say he's the greatest shooter of all time is because I look at certain things. That's why I didn't like when people call Ray Allen the greatest shooter, because his percentage was 45%, which is a little pedestrian for me. Although his three-point percentage of 40% was exceptional. Stephen Curry's three-point percentage is around 43%, which is absolutely just jaw-dropping, all right? However, I've seen people say some hyperbolic things about Stephen Curry. Some people were saying that they think Stephen Curry is the best player in the league. That's bullshit, all right? That's bullshit, all right? I don't see from Stephen Curry on the defensive end what he does on the offensive end. All right, and Stephen Curry, even though he can't create his own shot, he does get a lot of help from screens from time to time, the pick and rolls. All right, he does. All right, he's not quite the ball. I mean, don't get me wrong, he can get his shot off and create his own shot in a way that Ray Allen and Reggie Miller never could. But he's still not on the level of a LeBron James or definitely a Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant as far as creating his own shot. All right. And like I said, on the defensive end, I can't, unless you're doing it on both ends of the court, I have a hard time considering you an MVP candidate. Just can't. Especially if you want to talk about someone being the best in the league or the best overall player. That's bullshit. All right. You know, the best players are 5-tool players. And Stephen Curry is at best a 2-tool player. He's exceptional in a couple of areas, but he, you know, maybe a 3-tool. I say 3-tool. Steph Curry is a 3-tool player, but, you know, he's not a 5-tool guy. All right. Also, you know, it's been made about he's obliterating the record for most three-pointers in a postseason run. And the previous record was held by Reggie Miller. Well, let's be upfront about something, okay? The three-point shot was instituted in the NBA in the 1979-80 season. All right. In the early 80s, it was considered a lot to shoot, to attempt at least 100 three-pointers during a season. That was considered a lot of three-pointers, 100. To attempt over one per game was a lot in the early to mid-80s. All right. Larry Bird was probably the first player to really, Larry Bird and I say Darrell Griffith. Those are the two guys, but Bird was the bigger star, so I'll put preeminence on Bird on this point. Bird was the first player to really institute the three-point shot in the NBA, all right? Bird was the guy who popularized that shot. Bird was the guy who had kids on the playground shooting a shot, mostly in game-winning situations, all right? It wasn't until the late 80s, very early 1990s, I'd say, that people like Dale Ellis, and in particular Michael Adams, Danny Ainge, Dan Marley, and eventually Reggie Miller. These were the guys, especially Reggie, who made the three-point shot even more popular, to the point where guys were taking 2, 3, and sometimes 4 three-pointers a game, which was a lot back in those days. Reggie was taking 3 to 4 three-pointers per game, That was considered a lot in the mid-1990s. Then you go to Ray Allen. All right. Ray Allen was taking even more three-pointers than Reggie Miller. Now, the reason why Ray Allen never broke Reggie Miller's record for three-pointers in the postseason isn't because he wasn't a great shooter. It was because when he was in his prime, his teams never really went deep in the postseason. And he also never shot the ball quite as much as Stephen Curry. All right, he was always kind of like the second or third option on those Buck teams. And when he was the main guy in Seattle, his teams never really went to the postseason. And when his teams did go to the postseason, deep in the postseason, the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat, Ray Allen was no longer a primary scorer. So Stephen Curry is in the favorable position of being in an era where three-point shots are taken at a higher, the highest proliferation. The three-point shot is just taken too much, in my opinion, but it's taken higher than any time in NBA history. And he's the preeminent three-point shooter, and he's in his prime. So therefore, that's why he's obliterating Reggie Miller's record. Yeah. I do think he's a better three-point shooter than Reggie, but I'm just explaining it further as to why he did it in 13 games, why it took, I believe, 22 games for Reggie to establish that record. And that's the point of this video is never listen to what you hear on TV and just take it for the gospel. Always look further into what these guys are saying. These are hype. They're nothing but glorified hype men, all these guys. And I don't buy the fucking hype most of the time. And before I end this video, I want to say that if any of you all who still have your parents out there, I think you should, especially on this holiday Memorial Day, if you don't live in the same town with them, same city, same state, give them a call. Tell them that you love them. And, if you do live near your parents, spend some time with them. Because you never know when your last moments with them were going to be. And, just treasure your parents and your loved ones while you still have them. Peace out.